Yes, Magdalena from California. Fantastic. Nice to see you, Wendy, with the Y. You meet Wendy with the I. I'm so glad you could join us from Canada. Okay, and it is 7 o'clock. Time to get rolling. I'm Yehudit Zicklin-Sidikman, and I am thrilled to be here with everyone. It is my pleasure to be able to talk about ESD, empowerment self-defense, something very close to my heart, and the projects that I've been involved in over the last, 20, 25 years. It's so exciting for me to see the global participation. We have quite a few countries on the list, which is really awesome. And friends from way back when. So many people who have been with me the majority of my journey into martial arts and empowerment self-defense. So I'd like to get started. One thing, this is webinar presentation, which means there isn't going to be a dialogue between us. And towards the end of the hour, about an hour, we'll start. I'll start looking for questions on the chat if I haven't gotten through them along the way. So here we go. We are going to share. That's the fun part. And hopefully now you can all see the PowerPoint presentation. So in 2003, with the skills that I picked up along the way, we opened a program in Israel called Halluf, which was originally a group of martial arts women who were dedicated to opening up more possibilities for martial arts instructors, female martial arts instructors, the religious communities who cannot participate in a co-ed class. And the women, we were seeing that women, even though they chose to come to a co-ed class, didn't necessarily stick through it. So Halluf was created to make a safe space for women to come and train, women teaching women and girls to train in the martial arts. And there are two parts of the story. One part of the story is that how did we morph into a more empowerment self-defense based program? We still have martial arts programs, and I'll touch on that a little bit. But how did I even get here? I had a neighbor when I was in my late 20s who had done judo as a kid and wanted to go back to it. And she convinced me to come. I didn't need much convincing, but she convinced me to come to a judo class that was only for women, though taught by a man. And I was, ultra orthodox at that time. It took a little more convincing to get my husband to agree. But the rabbi said, well, what are the chances that you'd be attacked by a woman? You'd probably be attacked by a man. Therefore, it's okay to learn from a man how to protect yourself. Great. All I needed to know to get myself to class. And what it really helped me do is reconnect with my body. Along the years, I spent some time, training in judo, but I met some really amazing people. And one of the amazing people I met very much in the beginning was Ellen Krauss-Grossman. Ellen Krauss-Grossman today is the executive director of ESD Global, and I'll get to that part of the story. So Ellen was a student in Israel and said, oh, cool, you're learning judo? Can I come to your class too? Not knowing that I was the only student at the time. Everybody else had dropped out. And I said, oh, that'd be great. I'd love to have somebody else to train with. So we spent a year training in judo, which was wonderful. And she had done some teaching of self-defense for women while she was in Jerusalem. At the end of that year, she said to me, hey, there's this really cool group in the United States called the National Women's Martial Arts Federation. And they have a special training, and it's in July, and it's going to be in Olympia, Washington this time. And I know you're going to be in the States with your parents. Is there any chance that you would be willing to come with me to this? Because, you know, I want to do something that might be a little triggering for me. And I'd like to know that I have somebody there who can support me. So I got on the plane. I farmed my kids out. The oldest went to camp. The two youngest stayed with my parents and a friend. And I got on a plane with my two oldest daughters, who were like 9 and 6 at the time, probably not much older or younger than that. And we flew out to Washington, to Seattle, where we were hosted by Joanne Factor, one of the first female martial artists that I met outside of Israel. Not that I had met many in Israel. There was maybe one that I had met. And I ended up being housed with Jill Shames, who is a dear friend and sensei of mine, and the former partner at LLEV. We've chosen to go to different ways, and that's okay, it happens. But we were thrown together probably because we both wrote kosher on our application, and the next thing we knew, we needed to figure that out by ourselves, which was wonderful because I brought the kids, she brought the food, and we had a lovely Shabbat dinner. But through that weekend, my first special training, I was exposed to women martial artists, but not just one, 300, of which 50% were black belts. And they were representing about, I think it was like 79 different martial arts, all sorts of eclectic things. And it was just like a smorgasbord of women's empowerment. And with Jill and with Jamie, we said, oh my God, Jamie Zimran, who is an Aikidoka, who I met there also that summer and was living part-time in Israel. We said, hey, we got to bring this to Israel somehow. Eventually, it rolled into what became El Halluf, and which we've been doing since 2003. The first major, and I can tell you that over the years, every time I've gone to special training, I've come home with new tools, with a little bit of my armor chipped away on what I know and what I don't know. And if anything, you know, I speak as a survivor of sexual assault as a child and as a woman who had been in an abusive marriage. But the reality is that I am what happens when someone is exposed to empowerment self-defense. Like, my healing has been part of, it has been totally supported by learning more and more and more about empowerment self-defense and why it's so near and dear to me and important. Okay, are you not gonna let me? Oh, there we go. So looking back, I just want to pause for a moment and really give a shout out to the original women who started this movement of empowerment self-defense in the 1970s and who came together as women in the martial arts who really had no support. And, you know, we talk about the glass ceiling, but what about the glass belt? You know, how do you get rank when you are in such a patriarchal system as the martial arts? And while I love martial arts and everything you can get from them, we need to keep in mind that the martial arts were systems. You know, if you look at the major martial arts, karate, judo, aikido, taekwondo, jujitsu, These are systems created for men to help men learn how to defend themselves against violence that men perpetrate against men. It's very different than the type of violence that women, children, people with disabilities, the LGBT community, and the elderly deal with on a daily basis. And so these women started to look at, one, how do we support each other? And at least get our batteries charged once a year by coming together and sharing our experiences and, you know, struggling through how to get rank and move forward and really make this accessible to women and girls. And those women, many of those women who I met way back in my beginning in this world, are now of the age where they're starting to retire. And so in the 70s, when you went home, you were really kind of disconnected from everybody else. Like the only time you really had connection was when you came to these special trainings. Because there was no internet then, and there were no cell phones. And even if they were starting, they were so expensive that most people couldn't afford them. They certainly weren't what they are today. So, you know, I look at this generation, that beginning generation, is the boots on the ground who did the hard work of figuring out what works and what can be done better, and has spent the last 40 years, almost 50 years, really chewing through how do we become better at what we do. So I am giving much honor, and you know, I don't always get to be able to, my speaking in English is sometimes limited, because I can't come up with the right word in English, but hakara. There's a real respect for all they've done and all they've brought into the world. And 2 or 3 years ago, before we started ESD Global, I really felt a fear for what is this going to look like in 20 years? What is ESD going to look like in 20 years? Because many of the starters are starting to stop teaching, and not all of them have a next generation, which is super sad. So ESD Global grew out of, how do we make sure that this knowledge that's been created over the last almost 50 years is maintained through the next generations. And to me, that is about turning this into a profession with professional standards and the ability for anyone to learn how to be this type of professional and maintaining the standards. So that's why we created ESD, sort of as an umbrella organization who will keep this, you know, going for the next few years. I see that ESD Global got on, and that's the picture I see at the moment, which makes me worried that you can't see me. So I'm gonna see if I can fix that. Hold on a second. Something going on in the chats.
Hey, Yehudit, it's Ellen. I'm logged in with the same login. I'm afraid that that's what did it.
Thank you. So nobody can hear me. You got to get off right now.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you. Okay. Off. Wait. Okay. Hold on. Yes. Recording. I can see you and the PowerPoint. Okay. Wait. Hold on. I'll tell you what was. You can see me. Can you hear me now? Somebody yes. Okay. Were you able to hear me when Ellen popped on, or was there a period of time when you couldn't hear me? Okay, so I didn't show many slides. We're going to go back to that. Yes, you could hear me. That's what was important. I'm going to go back to the slides so that you can see what's going on. Great, fantastic. All right, I don't have to repeat myself at least. And we're going to move on. Thank you. So next. So empowerment self-defense, when we talk about empowerment self-defense, I described martial arts. Empowerment self-defense, and which was feminist self-defense and then women's self-defense. And I know we've struggled with the naming of all this for years. You know, there are many people who went in the direction of personal safety, and there's there's validity in calling programs personal safety. And it was not an easy decision to make. You know, do we stick with self-defense? Because yes, it's what we do, and it also comes with a lot of baggage. It comes with the baggage of people who've been less than forthcoming in their goals for teaching women self-defense, which was kind of a bait and sell. Come to my self-defense class so I can convince you to come learn karate with me. And that didn't really address the types of violence that women were dealing with on a daily basis. So we have, and I believe the first person I ever heard talk about this was Janet Alfs. I'm not sure if she created it, but I would like to, at least I know I learned it from her. Was the 5 principles of self-defense. Think, what's going on here? Good for me, bad for me, yell, use your voice. And we teach people to exaggerate their voice so that they feel comfortable being strong in their voice. So yes, teaching people to absolutely yell, leave me alone, I don't want to talk to you. It takes away the difficulty of saying that in a normal voice. Because sometimes that's all it needs. Run if you can, but there are things that I need to think about before I can decide whether or not I can run. How close am I to the perpetrator? How fast might they be? What shoes did I put on that morning? And honestly, I don't want to have to choose my shoes based on fear. So I want to know what to do at the moment that I feel like I'm in an uncomfortable situation, whatever it may be. Fight if you have to, and this I learned from Clara Porter. Fight if you have to, not because you want to, knowing you have the right to. And I believe that by having the physical tools, more women will take the chance of setting a strong, clear boundary because they're not afraid of the what if. Because if you're always afraid of the what if I set a boundary and he says, screw that, and jumps at me, or starts getting physical. What if? And so if you don't have this physical skills, you may not use the empowered voice skills. So they're just as important. And how do we create communities where you are supported in the telling of your story? And the telling of the story can be in 2 different ways. For one, it can be, oh my God, I thought this guy, this boyfriend, guy, whatever person I was dating, and yes, it could be a woman. We know that not all violence is perpetrated by men. But in that moment where I said I'm not interested, and they ignored that and kept touching, kept kissing, or kept moving it towards me in a way that I made it very clear I was not okay with. There are 2 endings to that story. One is, and they attacked me and I was raped and I was, abused in whatever way, and I need to share this. And the other side of telling that story is, and I set a boundary and I threw their butt out of the apartment and I locked the door and we're all good. I still have the right to tell that story and have that be supported. And I believe that when we talk about creating safer communities, That's what we do in a classroom. In the groups that we teach, we make a commitment to being that supportive community for each other. And that is just important of every other skill, because the honest truth is the only shame should be the shame of the perpetrator, the person who decides to ignore the boundary and do something against somebody else without their consent. There should be no shame on the person who defended themselves or wasn't able to defend themselves. And that's okay too. And, you know, there's a lot of things we know about the work we do, but one of the things we know is, and there's actually research to support this, is that women who have had self-defense training and were not capable of stopping an attack, their healing is actually deeper and faster. So, you know, this is a real win-win situation. Yes, it can stop a lot of the violence from growing, and it's a healing process also. So not therapy, but yes, therapeutic. And I am a true model of what that means. And those of you who have seen me over the last 20 years know, you know, how those steps developed and how I really was able to step into my voice and step into my body. So I believe two things, and I'm actually not sure that the slides are one after the other, but we're going to start with the first one. That our greatest gifts are our bodies and souls, and it's our responsibility to protect them. What this doesn't mean is that we are responsible for the violence perpetrated on it. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So what I do want to talk about is the difference between primary prevention and secondary prevention. Primary prevention, secondary prevention is what most prevention that's funded today is doing. It's about recognizing violence as it's happening. It's about removing the person from that abusive relationship or giving them a place to come and heal. And it's about the rehabilitation. But what this needs is someone to be victimized. So you know, when we talk in you know, philanthropic words about where do we put our money, this is pulling people out of the river. It's not addressing who's pushing them in. And we need the who's pushing them in at the same time. So that's what ESD focuses on, and what the conference that I will talk to you about at the end is really about. So we look at the world and say, we want to acknowledge that something is happening that I'm not okay with, that I don't want to be happening, and that I have asked for it to stop. That's announcing, I'm not okay with this. I want you to stop. Use your voice. Not acknowledges, I'm not feeling good about this. Announcing is setting that boundary, and then acting in whichever way you need to act. That's primary prevention. That's tools. The only person that's going to be with me at the moment that I decide I am not happy with how I'm being treated is me. And therefore, I want the skills to know how to behave at that moment and what I can do to get away from there as safely as I can. So yes, we're talking about responsibility, but in a slightly different way. All right, I'm not taking responsibility for the violence, for the person who's perpetrating violence. No matter what I say, no matter what I do, it is not my responsibility for them to step over the line. Because the honest truth is, if I scream at a really, you know, strong person who knows how their convictions on, I am not a violent person, it doesn't matter what I say, they're not going to get violent. And I could say the littlest thing to somebody whose mind was set on being violent to begin with, and that doesn't mean I triggered that violence, because it was there anyway. and it was going to happen. It was just on their timeline, not on mine. So what we're talking about is not being responsible for the violence, but being able to respond. Like, I'm the only one with me all the time. I want to be able to respond. So self-defense and empowerment self-defense in particular is about being able to respond. And primary prevention is about preventing violence before it happens or as it is developing. Oh, these are not in order. Sorry, guys. So in order to talk about this, what's going on in the world today. So in February, we are going to be running here in Israel at LLEV, the first violence prevention education conference. Our hope is to attract people who have expertise in violence prevention and primary violence prevention, on how to give children, boys and girls, because unfortunately, now, you know, the more we talk about things and the more research is being done for young boys, the statistics are just as horrifying as they are for young women, young girls. And while violence is different for boys, when you're not talking about sexual assault, is very different for young men and, you know, high school boys than it is for high school girls. The skills that are taught at early ages will stand them in good stead as they develop. And one of the things we're very proud of at LLEV is we've looked at the developmental cycle of getting from kindergarten through high school. And if you think about it, you can, we all know that a 5-year-old is 100% dependent on adults. Totally, it has no independence. And as they grow, you know, now we're 8-year-olds, now we're 11-year-olds, now we're 14-year-olds, that the dependence is much lower and the independence is much higher. By the time you get to the end of high school, they're fully independent and they don't even listen to us anymore. And therefore, if you are giving them, you know, it's maybe not PC to talk about it as inoculations because that's a whole nother argument. But if you look at this as a system of inoculations over the year, that there are things that we talk to 5, 6, 7-year-olds that have to be repeated over and over again. My body, my right to defend it. And, you know, nobody can touch it but me unless I allow them to. So if I want a hug, have a hug. I don't want a hug, it's my right to say I don't want a hug right now. And that doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means I don't want a hug. And it could mean I don't love you too, but, you know, that's for them to decide, and it's us for adults to help guide them through that. And respect that, and that's tough. So so that may be on high volume at 5, but it doesn't have to be high volume for high school. For high school, it's okay for me to just say, your body, your right to decide who touches it. High volume's gotta be, okay, what does dating violence look like? What does manipulative behavior look like? That's got to be on high violence. And I'm not going to talk to 5-year-olds with a high volume of sexual assault. I'm going to talk to them with a low volume of that. And I'm going to increase the volume as their independence grows. And they need to negotiate other things. So this conference, and any of you who have connections with people who would be appropriate for speakers, please have them fill out the call for speakers, call for papers, whatever it's put on there, on this website. And we would be thrilled to see some really interesting and exciting programs from around the world, presentations from around the world. and that's in the February conference. This is the call for speakers, right? One of the things that's a little different this time is, and I believe it was part of why we chose to move into the empowerment self-defense piece rather than the women's self-defense or feminist self-defense, which I agree with totally. It's important. But in November 1st, I think it was 2016, yeah, 2016, my first grandson was born. And I'm holding this perfect, beautiful little boy in my arms. And two real aha moments for me were, I don't ever want the world to treat you as a potential rapist. You are so much more than that. And two, I want to make sure that you get the skills you need to safely navigate the world. And that took 4 years of chewing over how do we get men involved into full forward, I have got to solve this problem. And this last summer, I had the honor and thrill to be able to bring together 13 really good men from all around the world: Israel, Nepal, Slovenia, Haiti, Costa Rica, United States, both coasts, and I'm probably forgetting one, Nepal. I don't know if I said Nepal. Anyway, and some of them had backgrounds in martial arts, some had backgrounds in empowerment self-defense because they are instructors within Impact, which is for those of you who don't know, Impact is an empowerment self-defense program that's adrenaline-based, where a female lead instructor works with male instructors who put on body armor and basically donate their bodies to science so that women can use full power and see what it feels like to be in an adrenalized state, fight back and win. So super important program. But so, and even guys who are just working in normal, regular, everyday empowerment self-defense through programs like PAC, Prevention Action, and I forgot what the C is, up in Portland, Maine with Clara Porter. But I brought them together, and educators and professors, and said, guys, we have created something that really works amazingly well for young women, girls, and women. I need you to make this culturally appropriate for boys and men. So little kids, easy peasy. 5 to 7, 8 to 10, they're not 100% sure that there's a real big difference between boys and girls. But when it starts to get to 11, 13, 14 to 16, we really need to look at what are they going through, what are they getting as messages from society, and how can we give them the tools they need to feel safe in the world. So that men's incubator was a huge first step into looking at how can we solve the problem of bringing ESD in a culturally appropriate way to men and boys. I'm very proud of the work they've done. So what's going on in February? Other than the conference, this 2-day conference, which you can go to both the ESD Global and the LLM sites to find more information about it. We're doing the teacher trainings that we've been developing over the last 3 years in Israel. So it's a week-long training, slightly longer because we want participants of the training to participate in the conference. And if you're already come to Israel, stay a little longer. But what's different about this is that we're doing a regular women's level 1. This is the program we've now taught. We've been teaching since 2017. We had 1 in 2017, 2 in 2018, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in 2019, either 4 or 5 in 2019. And 101 graduates who are now starting their work in empowerment self-defense in 39 different countries. I know that there are people who are very skeptical about, well, can you learn how to train empowerment self-defense in a 48-hour training program, no matter how condensed and intensive it is? And the answer to that is they are not fully certified instructors. So once upon a time ago, in order to become a certified instructor, you needed to have a lot of experience in the martial arts and go out and start teaching women self-defense, whether or not anybody could teach you that, or you'd get your little bit of tastes of that at these special trainings. And then you'd have to write about how you teach and why you teach to be certified, which is, it may be a way to do it, but it's not a way to scale. And what LLF's been doing for the last almost 10 years now is we've been running teacher training programs, because in Israel, you actually have to be fully certified with it's a 270-hour course that is recognized by the Ministry of Sport in Israel. And you get what you need in order to be a fully certified teacher. And you have to have 3 years of background in the martial arts or self-defense. It's a whole process. But we've gotten really good at teaching women how to do this and become good teachers. And we said, well, what if we broke it into little pieces? So first of all, if you think about it, how many people, hold on a second. There's a little chatter here on the chat, so I just want to make sure everything's still good. Great. What if we give you the very basic, intensely, level 1, and then we mentor you through level 4, fully certified? What would that look like? Level 1 is, here is the basics of how to run a taste of ESD and how to run a full basics course of 10 hours for normative women. So, because if you think, let's go rewind. How many people, I can tell the story of the North Dakota women who I absolutely love and am so thrilled that they're doing what they're doing out in North Dakota now. But my first conversation with Shonda was, there is no one in our area who we feel safe learning martial arts with. It's all men in men's groups, and even if it's available, it's not accessible and it's icky. We don't want to be part of that. So how are they supposed to become part of empowerment self-defense teachers? And if we only look at martial arts people, how many are we going to find in Tajikistan? How many are we going to find in Somalia? How many are we going to find in, if that's the pool of people you have to start with, women who are committed to sticking with empowerment, self-defense, or martial arts for a lifetime, who choose this as a profession, we may not get the right people. Well, what if they were social workers? They already know some of the stuff that you need to know for holding space for trauma survivors. They already know some of the skills of running groups. What if we started with them? What if we started with women who have backgrounds in education? What if we started with women who had backgrounds in gender studies? Would they be able to pick up the physical skills, work on them, and get feedback about how they do them over the years, and build a mentorship program that really would support the growth from level 1 graduate to level 4 fully certified? And that's what we are looking at doing. We now have a whole bunch of women who have stepped up and stepped into the level 2 program. So we're very excited about that, and hopefully we're going to see some of them within 2020 turning into level 3 instructors or teachers, teacher trainees. And so that's the women's level 1. The co-ed program is what we're looking for are men and women, a man and a woman, who want to work together to learn how to bring empowerment self-defense into school systems, athletic programs, after-school programs, and into their communities in general for the 5 to 7 and the 8 to 10-year-old programs. So these are already programs that we have tested among co-ed groups, and they work and they really make a big difference. Okay, we're going to start with that, with the hope that next summer we'll be able to teach the next step of the co-ed program for the 11 to 13-year-olds and the 14 to 16-year-olds. So that's the co-ed, but what we're looking for is 2 human beings, one who is male identified and one who is female identified, who are coming together to work as equals, which role models how men and women are supposed to work together in classrooms and in settings of groups of young kids, to teach them how to be safe among and the ocean that they swim in. You know, if you think about it, we teach kids to swim so that they'll be safe in water, self-defense against water, but we're less involved in teaching them how to be safe among people, and that's an ocean we swim in a lot more. The third program that's going to be going on during this week is, if you are a empowerment self-defense person, empowerment self-defense practitioner who's been doing this for a jillion years, who has a lot of knowledge and excitement about this and wants to learn how to make this grow globally by becoming a level 1 instructor, we are going to do an intensive on what is our method of teaching level 1. I think one of the biggest difference between us and some other empowerment self-defense programs is we don't deliver a curriculum. There is a curriculum, there are a zillion games, there are a zillion things that you can learn, but it really depends on, you know, how you do what you do. That's fine. This is not a delivery of a curriculum. We are not going to feed you a curriculum. We're going to show you how to facilitate a process of helping women reconnect with their voice, their soul, what do I want, what do I not want, and their bodies. And that's a little different than a lot of places, you know, and I've asked this question 1,000 times in 1,000 different places, is, you know, we all have an opinion as martial artists as to where the best first strike should be. Is it straight to the face, or is it to the throat, to the chin, to the neck? I mean, what is the best first thing to teach? And I actually had an interesting conversation before this, and the guy who is very informed, and he is totally doing ESD in Barcelona, an amazing new addition to what we do, started talking about the importance of this rather than this. And I said to him, you know, I could argue the other way, and some will, but my first question is, did she hit hard? So, you teach this first, great. You teach this first, great. You teach this first, great. Did she hit hard? Did you give her the ability to make that first strike with full force and full conviction? And so whether we agree on every single technique and every single centimeter of how somebody should stand doesn't really matter, because I don't want to create 1,000 Yehudits. I want to create 1,000 instructors who teach the best that they can teach and help people reconnect to their bodies. You know, many years, well, not so many years ago, but at judo camp, which I love going to, one of the instructors, senior instructors, got on the mat and said, looked at all the black belts and said, everybody does judo different. And we all kind of puckered our faces, and it's the one thing that judo has a lot of pride in. There aren't different flavors of judo. Judo is judo. We all teach the same curriculum. And he says it again, everybody does judo differently. And we're still scratching our heads and looking at each other and not getting it. And he goes, oh no, everybody. Well, yeah, because my Ippon Seoinage is not going to look like Connie's Ippon Seoinage, and it's certainly not going to look like Koga's Ippon Seoinage. So I need to learn how to use my body to do the best judo it can. I need to learn how to use my body to be the best weapon for self-defense as it can be. So if you would like to consider being part of that, then you just email me, send me a little buzz. You can do it on Facebook. Almost everybody in the world knows my email address. Just ask a friend. And it's the next thing down on the ESD Global site. So the other thing I believe in, without a shadow of a doubt, is every human being begins life worthy of love. And the question is, are we as a community supporting that? Are we making sure that everybody knows that and everybody knows that it's their right to protect that? And what is a talk about self-defense without a cute picture of awesome little girls who are learning to stand up for themselves? So that just had to be there. So what's going on globally? At the moment, we are in lots of places. Some people are more active than others, and some people are really going, oh, yeah, I want to put this into everything I do. I want to make this the gasoline behind my, the solar panels behind my life, and bring it into my yoga, and bring it into my therapy practice, and bring it into my education, into my fifth grade school, fifth graders. And that's super exciting. But there are definitely not enough little markers up there yet. And we have many friends who are now working in this all over the United States, and yet there are still a lot of white spots there. So we need to do a little more and a little better to get to some of those other places. This is this past summer's group. And what I can tell you about this group, this was the night we broke our boards. One of the processes of breaking the boards is to write what you want to break through on the boards. And what you have in front of you are women from, let's see, Chile, Nepal, Kenya, Italy, Samoa, Israel, of course, and a zillion more, and different ages, different backgrounds coming into this, and everybody left being stoked and excited and ready to be part of the change that absolutely must happen to make the world a better place. So the LLF program is about freedom to choose, and that's what we want to give everybody, is the tools they need to choose what they want their life to look like, and not have life determined for them by navigating around the things that are challenging and threatening. So I'm going to stop the share so that I can look at the questions. There we go. So we have one in the question department. I would like some more clarity on the levels of ESD Global's instructor trainings. I did level 1 in New York. I'm committed to going forward and continuing all the way up through, but I don't know where I am now. And the influence completing the NWMAF self-defense program may have. This may be a longer conversation another time, so that's cool. Okay, so the answer to that is you absolutely with the experience, I actually know who this person is, so I'm going to answer that. If you have years of work, like you've taught at least, let's say 300, 350, 500 hours of empowerment self-defense over years, then we have created with members of NWMAF and others, members of the impact community, an assessment. And that assessment's about 190 questions. It takes about an hour to answer them. And based on your scoring on that, we'll know who needs to follow up with you. So if you sat and you did the whole 190 questions, but you score kind of low, then we're going to try to convince you to come to a level 1 training. If you score 85 or above, then we get it, you're aligned. And then we'll just look at and see which of the things that you disagreed with, or we got you the 86 and not the 100. And most of that is because the honest truth is anybody who is ESD committed doesn't like the answer true or false, yes or no. They want us to put in there, well, it depends. And yes, it does depend. But that's a conversation we want to have with you. Like, we want to push you to make a decision. Do you think this is true or false? And if you have a problem, then talk to us and let's see what it's about. Because yes, some of the questions are vague, and they are vague on purpose. So don't get frustrated. That and or doing the assessment, scoring high on it, means you are aligned with empowerment self-defense. So the only thing you need is somebody to talk with you and say, yes, you're in, which you already are. So that's easy. If you are going through the process or have gone through the process of the NWMAF certification, you are totally covered. You're certified ESD people. We don't need to recertify you. You are in. Yes, you have to do the assessment. Why? Because we all do. I did the assessment too. And the reason is because we have the same rules for everybody. You want to be part of the movement, you want to show that you have this knowledge and you're aligned with us, then do the assessment. So yes, it means committing an hour to it, just do it. And if you came into this world through level 1, the next steps are mostly through mentorship and teaching on the ground, but the level and getting more knowledge. So participating in webinars that are specifically about different topics, like being trauma informed. We don't do therapy. On the other hand, we're gonna have women who come to our classes who have traumatic histories. And what does it mean to work within the window of tolerance? And what happens if you push somebody beyond what you should have pushed them? Do you know how to do first aid? Or at least do you know who you can refer them to, and how to support them as they do this? So I hope that answered that question. And we answered that live. Okay. I think I answered that. Great. And I'm just going to roll back here and see if there's anything else. So anybody want to type a question? Is there something that, could you explain a little further what type of programs you're looking for? I'm not quite sure what that means. Let's see. What are the exact, for the conference. So what kind of topics are we looking for? So what we're looking for is innovative programs that look at the prevention of violence. Now, we're pretty broad on that because let's say you work with women who've walked away from domestic violence, right? So in theory, what you're working on with them is rehabilitation. Yet, if what you're implementing is a program that helps them make better decisions moving forward, or knowing they have a right to make better decisions, or have a right to make decisions that are good for them, then that will help you. Then that would be considered too. So it's, yes, there is the, get them out, but it's not enough to just do to do vocational training for women who are now out of abusive relationships and need that in order to not go back. So the vocational training is not going to help them not get into another abusive relationship. So there would have to be a direct connection between giving them skills to navigate life from a safer place and not just be empowered financially. I hope that makes sense. So the dates for, all of the issues of dates and prices and things are on the websites. I actually don't believe the price for the conference is up yet, because today we actually made the decision about what it would cost just for the conference. But the programs for level 1 training and all of that, the information is on the website. The next level 1 training at the moment, okay, I can't promise you there won't be an earlier one in Seattle or Denver, because we've got a couple of things cooking on the fire right now. But the next dated level 1 program is in Israel, starting with people arriving in Israel on February 13th and leaving on the 25th. That's including the conference. So it's a week-long training, little time to get to know Jerusalem, and maybe go out and do a little touring on the weekends, the Friday night, Saturdays, because our work week starts Sunday morning. So we're going to start, we will start learning as of first thing Sunday morning. So that's the next level 1 training. So I want to talk a second about money, okay? And this is always a tough part. One of the other issues in trying to get certified through other people is there's a cost. And there should be a cost. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a cost. I think, every program, every instructor has developed curriculum. They've put their life into developing this expertise, and they're now teaching, others to do it. They deserve to be paid. That being said, that makes it inaccessible for people who can't afford it. And part of what ESD does is assess that barrier, which means that here is the price, but if money is what's stopping you from saying yes, talk to us. So we can't, give stipends and fund 100% of people 100% of the time. We will not survive. But if you are really invested and interested in being part of this and willing to sign on the conditions, which means you have to start teaching in your communities, that you are committed to bringing this into your communities, and money is an issue, talk to us. And I can tell you that we've done everything from giving back lost wages, and because the person not only couldn't afford it, but couldn't afford taking the week off and was not being given paid leave. And we've given stipends for elder care, because they're the only ones that are taking care of an elderly parent and they need to hire somebody to do that and they can't afford that. So if we want to be global, then we need to be sensitive to the barriers that women have from choosing to come to a training like this. And I believe that's an investment in human, human resources. Just give people the power to really affect their lives and the lives of the people around them, and all will be good. That brought me a question up in my head that I didn't address, and now I can't remember what it was. Ooh, hold on, a couple more questions here. So level 2, the question is, will there be a level 2 training available to participate in 2020? So level 2 is 2 things. It's about writing up what it is for you from day 1 of a course to day 5 of a course for, I think, 5 courses that you do. So there's a written piece to level 2 that you have to do. The other piece of level 2 is getting more knowledge. So like I said, it could be attending webinars on, working with younger kids, working with people with disabilities, working with former sex workers or, sex trafficking survivors, working with the LGBT community, going deeper into some of the other things about empowerment self-defense. Coming to the conference, it will be counted as level 2 knowledge. We now have a new thing that we're adding to our level 1 training, and that is, we found that what we really need is an assistant in each class, that there are 2 instructors teaching level 1, but there needs to be at least a level 1 grad or a level 2 grad or a level 3 grad who internships as being the problem solver for the level 1 programs. So it could either mean helping with physical first aid, helping somebody find a Band-Aid and wash it off and all that. It could be, oh my God, I forgot my clipboard in whatever room and running to get that. And it could be allowing one of the teachers to step off the mat and deal with emotional first aid, and you stepping in and assisting the other teacher in teaching that class. So whether it means holding a pad or running a warm-up game or whatever it may be, that's what level 2 and 3 are going to look like. We're going to expect you at some point to assist in a level 1 course. That will also help you along your way to becoming level 1 instructors. So it's all good in the hood. So yes, that's how you would participate in level 2 training. In the long run, my goal is to work with high school teens. Would you advise the co-ed program? If your goal is high school, then this co-ed program is not going to address that. This is specifically geared for the younger ages. That being said, for the specific person who asked that question, being an intern in the level 1 program might be your best next step. And or being an intern in the co-ed class. So either one, but I need 2 interns. So grab those spots while you can. So any plans for ESD level 2, 3, et cetera in the States? I think I just answered that. Because of the there are 2 real problems. Level 1, it's hard to get everybody from all over the globe into one space at one time. I mean, we've got people in India and, Armenia and God knows, like all over. To try to find those people, enough of them in one area who are ready for a level 3 in-house training became mind-bogglingly impossible. bringing them together, or bringing all level 1 graduates who want to continue in their levels to a conference, that's a little less scary, right? You know, let's come together, come for the conference every year, you know, or every 2 years, whatever it will be. But the majority of that work is you getting to know yourself as a teacher and showing us that you see your improvement, and that you ask good questions and you get good, you know, and you're okay with getting feedback and you're moving along, and that you see that your classes are getting better and you can show that to us. And then the graduation dissertation that we're going to want from you is, can you see the change that you're affecting in your students? So in the beginning, we want to see you reflect on yourself and how you are changing as a teacher along your classes. And at the end, we want you to show us that you understand that this group you have is a diverse group that needs special attention to each individual to help them along their path, and that you can figure out how to do that in a group setting, so that so-and-so who might be a little more averse to physical touch or the fighting part of it graduates being just as tough as everybody else, or as tough as she needs to be. And that one who's really having an issue with the emotional side, the emotional behind of using voice, is a lot more comfortable saying what she needs. You know, for any of those of you who have ever worked with me, you know I teach about the muscle of embarrassment, that we teach people to do embarrassing things so that they learn to stretch that muscle, that it's okay for me to do something that I think is embarrassing. Whatever it may be. And so, did you see how day one, everybody was kind of really weirded about that warm-up part? Using your mouth in weird ways. And yet on day 5, they kind of are looking forward to it. Like, they know that that's part of the warm-up and they're into it. Like, they just do it. And is that a shift that was profound? That all of a sudden, everybody who's a little weird about doing something that's not appropriate is like, just like owning it and feeling really empowered by it. So that's the answer about levels 2, 3, 4. Yes, we want to see you again. And yes, if you want to come take level 1 again, you could do that too. But I think that the system that we're creating of mentorship and an online library resource space where you can find more information. We're not there yet. We're working on it. We were hoping to launch it sometime this fall, but we need the right person to do this. So if you have any library skills or were ever trained in that and you want to talk to us, we're looking for you. But having that online resource, place where you can go and do a deep dive, because sometimes, you know what, we have questions that we don't even know we have until we see it in a list of options to poke for more information. We go, oh, you know, I never thought about that. I never thought about, can I challenge someone to step through? You know, like, is this a thing? Like, is it a good thing? We might be able to get them to step in. Can we get them to step and bump somebody off their line? Oh, what does that feel like? So the hope is the mixture of super intense first level training and then mentoring, written material, learning more through webinars and other things you do. Like, if you go to a workshop with somebody else, write it up and say, hey, I just did a 2-day workshop with, was it Women Warriors? I don't know, whatever, another one of the programs, Assert in Nashville with Liz Fitzgerald and Kat. And I just did this extra training, or I did another level of impact, or whatever it is. And we'll look at that as you developing your program, your skills as being a certified instructor. And the honest truth is, I know good people want to be professional. They want to be good. They want to feel, I think one of the hardest things for the level 1 instructors is actually saying, I can teach. And we make it very clear, you're going to make mistakes. We all did in the beginning. But the reality is, and I think every single one of us old timers can tell you, oh my God, I made so many mistakes in the beginning, but I learned from them. And to me, that's one of the things that I really love about judo. Because what I learned in judo is when you get on the mat, you can win or you can learn. And if you don't get on the mat, you can't do either. But when you're on the mat, and I compete, I actually have seen kids who won, as 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds, and now they're 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds, and the guy who's a yellow belt, who's only been training for 2 years, beats them. How devastating that is, because they always won. Like, I'm the champ, I'm the winner. And they never learned what it is to fail. They never learned what it is to make a mistake. They never learned because they were just always better than everybody because they've been doing it since they're 5. But that doesn't work when you're a teenager. Like, if you didn't learn along the way, then you're not going to be better than the guy who's like really, or the girl who's really pushing during the first 2-3 years that she's training as an older kid who can think through what they're being taught. You just did it naturally. Oh, well, that's going to kick you in the butt at some point. So, the level 1 program is get on the mat. Learn what you need to do to go to the fight. Go to the fight is go teach a class. Some will work, some will not work. That was the piece I missed. How do we make this culturally appropriate? One thing I know of making things culturally appropriate, why did we go to the men and say to them, you need to figure out how to make this culturally appropriate for men and boys? Because one thing I will never be is an expert at being a boy. And I will also never, no matter how much I care and I put my heart into it, I will never be an expert in being a Dominican Republic citizen. I will never be an expert in living in Nepal. I will never be an expert in living in Belgium, because that's not within my skill set. So I want to help someone from Belgium or Armenia or Nepal or Kenya to learn how to teach this so that they can be part of the process of making it culturally appropriate for the women and kids that they work with. And to me, that's super important. And having it be local, a local solution to a local problem, and brought to that community by people who care about bringing and making their communities safer. And I believe that if we start changing the petri dish that kids are raised in to be one that is safer and understands boundaries and understands consent and understands body autonomy and understands your right to use your voice to stand up for yourself, that we will have a much healthier adulthood 20 years down the line. Let's see, I see there are 5 new messages and no more new questions. Let's see. Everybody makes mistakes. That's part of human experience. Some worry that females fighting back will make males angrier and more aggressive. To what extent is this a problem? So if you watch the movie Beauty Bites Beast, one of the guys addresses this. And what he says is, you're not going to make a good, nice guy into an attacker by setting boundaries. Like, that's not it. This is someone who has made the decision that you have no rights, or you have little rights, or you have less rights than they do. And their right to want what they want when they want it is more important. So, I don't believe that teaching my daughters, right, teaching my kids to be good drivers, right, will make them more prone to accidents. It just doesn't make sense. We give them the tools to be safe drivers so that they may not be the ones who are the cause of the accident, but it doesn't, it doesn't change the statistics about whether or not they're going to be in an accident. And the person who's driving like a nutcase is the one who's responsible for driving like that, and not caring about anybody else on the road. Just as somebody driving through life who doesn't see that other people have the right to their body and to their voice and to their soul is not gonna, is not gonna be triggered by something. And somebody who's, we teach, the reason why we teach people to fight to defend themselves is so that they don't have to use it. If I know that I can take care of myself, then I'm going to stop things in a way that will do least harm. Because I don't want to be that violent person. And the program teaches that you need to do what you need to do to get away safely. Nobody can make that decision but you at the moment that it's happening. So all the what ifs in the world, we can't answer. All we can do is help you learn how to assess the risk in those what ifs. So no, I do not believe that this makes anybody want to be more aggressive. I actually believe it makes people to want to stop things before they turn into something much more problematic. The steps for going to Israel in February. Sign up for something online. Shoot us an email. Click on contact us. Tell us you're interested, and we'll point you in the right direction. We are good at helping people get the right information so that they can get where they need to be. Yes, what else? Yes, you want to talk about, does fighting back cause more injury? So the answer to that is there's actually research that shows that you will be no more injured fighting back than had you not. Right? The intention was to injure you. They were not planning on being nice to you all night long, right? So if the intention was to hurt you to begin with, fighting back, you are no more hurt than had you not fought back. Now, clearly, there's a risk in fighting back always. But I'd rather use my words so I don't have to fight, and if that doesn't work, then I'm going to be okay with doing the rehabilitation on my shoulder if that's what I need to do, as long as I got home safe. What are the requirements to become an intern? Apply. We will find you a spot that works for you and works for us. Easy. All you need to be a intern is to have completed level 1 and are doing your hours that you need to give back to the community. I think I've answered all the questions. I am so thrilled. I'm just looking, I'm scanning through the chats. I'm so glad that you guys were actually talking to each other while I was talking. Great. I'm so thrilled that there are 21 of you out there. Yay, that's exciting. And thank you, Magdalena, for the, that you got information. I'm glad I was able to give it to you. As most of you know, if you ever have, specific questions, you can always reach out to Beth or to Ellen or to me. And if you need, and if you need hand holding or, just talking through the future and what that might look like for you and how to make a plan, it would be my pleasure to find a time to Zoom one-on-one and help talk through, what is the right path for you and what does that mean. So I'm going to thank you all for participating, because I don't believe I need to go on about this. I think I got your questions, and I see that there are people who need to get off. And I appreciate you all, and thank you being, the many of you who are already part of the tribe, I thank you for being part of the tribe and stepping in when you had no idea what this crazy person was about to do. And I believe the last 2 years have really been about testing. What works better, what works for different places. Like, we can't treat a training program in Lesbos or Samos, at a refugee camp, the same way we treat one in upstate New York. It's got to be different. We have to look at it differently. And whether or not the women working in the camps are, normal women who have normal jobs, doing normal things, they're dealing with trauma every day. So, there are pieces of this that we need for them to help them heal and keep their batteries running so that they can do what they need to be doing. But, we try to be as mindful of the needs of the communities we're going in as possible for outsiders. And we work very closely with our partners about how to make things appropriate for them. So I truly appreciate all of you. I look forward to seeing some new faces coming to some of the programs in February. That would be super exciting for me. And may the force be with you. And it's a new year for Jews, so I'm going to wish you a happy new year. And looking forward to meeting you all again one day and seeing you get involved in a deeper and more, fulfilling way. So whatever you want to do, let me know. We'll figure out how to help you get more involved with us. It's our pleasure. And everybody's saying thank you and goodbye. So I love you guys. Love you all. I am so looking forward to working more with you, and may the force be with you.